Conspiracies Proven True, Part 1, MKUltra. MKUltra, a covert American experiment and program, almost defies belief. The program began in 1953 amidst the crippling fear of nuclear war and competition between the superpowers of the world, namely America, the Soviet Union and China. The CIA experiments all loosely focused on the area of behavioural modification. America, fearing that the Chinese and Soviets were brainwashing American POWs during the Korean War, began the program to counter these alleged actions. However, the CIA completely disregarded ethics in their approach, as many victims were not aware of their participation. Much of the experimentation focused on the use of mind-altering substances such as LSD. A large portion of this was conducted in prisons, universities and hospitals. Willing or unwilling participants would be exposed to these drugs in the hopes of creating better techniques for brainwashing, creation of amnesia and psychological torture, as well as being better able to block these effects.
Well, tell me. Well, I just couldn't. I couldn't possibly tell you. It's here. Can't you feel it? This whole room. This everything is in color, and I can feel the air. I can see it. I can see all the molecules. I'm part of it. Can't you see it?
I'm trying.
Oh, it's just like you're released or you're free or... I don't know how I can tell you.
They wanted to form methods to control the mind of enemies, allowing the US to create unwitting spies, double agents and assassins. The term for such a person is known as a Manchurian candidate, taken from the book by Richard Condon and the latter film adaptation. Some of the experimentation involved the use of electric shock therapy, repetitive playing of pre-recorded messages, isolation, hypnosis and comatosing victims for weeks. The hope was to program behaviours whilst creating amnesia. Some of the more nefarious activities of the project, including using prostitutes to lure men to CIA safe houses disguised as brothels. The prostitutes would spike these men, whilst members of the CIA would hide behind two-way mirrors to view and record the effects of the drugs, namely LSD. The CIA also unwittingly caused the mental breakdown and death of one of their own scientists in their covert activities. Frank Olson was the name of the scientist who was unwittingly spiked with acid. He had adverse effects to the substance and developed severe paranoia and schizophrenia. A few weeks later, in 1953 to be exact, he would plunge to his death from the window of a New York hotel. The death was ruled a suicide, but that conclusion is a conspiracy in itself, as many believe he was assassinated by his own organisation. The experiments conducted by MKUltra were far-reaching into many different sectors in life, such as music, crime, literature and sport. Ken Casey, the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, for example, was training for the 1960 Olympics when he became involved with the testing. Ultimately, LSD testing enlightened the straight-edge student who would become a creative genius in the field of literature. Whitey Bulger, a Boston gangster, was exposed to acid experimentations whilst in jail in the 1970s. Bulger was also known to be an informer for the FBI, who suspiciously allowed Bulger an enormous amount of leniency in his criminal activities. Robert Hunter, a lyricist for the Grateful Dead, was another participant in drug experimentation for MKUltra. Hunter would go on to inspire millions of fans with his creative prowess for lyrics. Ted Kaczynski, aka the Unabomber, a 16-year-old maths prodigy at the time, was subject to a brutal form of behavioural engineering while studying at Harvard. Testers would subject him to brutal critiques of an essay he had written, to humiliate and cause stress to him, in order to study the effects. Kaczynski was made to re-watch the brutal psychological breakdown of his work over and over again. It is highly likely that, at least in some part, this contributed to his mental breakdown and subsequent US bombings to try and usher in an age of freedom from a technological takeover. All of this certainly links to claims of MKUltra controlled celebrities and criminals being responsible for culture shifts and the introduction of new laws. Whispers about shady experiments, dark suits and mind control blew through the streets of America, but such claims were labelled as delusions and conspiracy theories. However, in the late 1970s, the theory was proven true. After a New York Times article made the claims in 1974, a government investigation was set up by the Church Committee and the Rockefeller Commission, which subsequently proved this to be true. However, much of the evidence of the true extent of the testing, its use and implications will never be revealed. The CIA destroyed much of the data amidst the Watergate scandal. It has since been claimed that this MKUltra style manipulation and mind control still exists. Many speculate that in the age of celebrity worship, the American government is using these techniques on influential celebrities to create puppets to push an agenda. Theories range from the celebration of the unintelligent celebrity to dumb down the populace. Rap artists pushing racially stereotypical messages to create fear of and contain the black community. Journalists and politicians mind controlled by the shadow governments of the world to fit their own vision, and the promotion of promiscuity to break down the family unit are all things that people speculate towards the continued use of MKUltra. However, as of yet, the continuation of MKUltra is unproven, and so can remain for now an unsolved conspiracy theory.